Hello, everyone. My name is Dominique Jones, and I'm going to be doing my presentation on gender and sexual orientation, psychological disorders and therapies, ways of thinking. So the learning objectives that I'll be covering today is we'll be defining gender and gender identity, discuss gender roles and stereotypes, discuss gender differences in cognitive abilities, personality, and social behaviors, describe the various sexual orientations and their possible origins, define psychological disorder, adjustment disorder, anxiety disorder, and dissociative disorder and their symptoms, describe the elements of client-centered therapy, explain the use of group therapies, couples therapies, family therapy, self-help, and social groups, and discuss key issues in psychotherapy, including whether psychotherapy works, empirically supported treatments, culturally sensitive psychotherapy, and the feminist psychotherapy. All right, so what is gender, gender identity? So gender is the psychological state of being either male or female or something else as influenced by the cultural concepts of the stereotypical gender appropriate traits and behavior. Gender identity is defined as one sense of being male or female. Gender identity is also influenced by the complex interactions of psychological and social factors. All right, so gender roles and stereotypes. Gender roles are stereotypes regarding attitudes, attributes, and actions imposed on men and women based on gender. And stereotypes are a set of preconceptions regarding the role of a certain gender in society. And some of the stereotypes about sexual behaviors are as follows: men approach women, you have men initiating sexual interactions, women are gatekeepers who screen suitors, and men who are expected to have more sexual partners than women. So here are some of the differences in personality and social behaviors when it comes to males and females. I got this from the module. So as you can see here, it says females tend to, towards their personality, tends to be extroverted. They have anxiety, trust, consciousness, and being nurturing. As you can see, for males' personality, they tend to be more assertive, tough-mindedness, and self-esteem. And for females, for the social behavior, you see women tend to smile more, and women are tending to disclose their feelings a lot more than men, and females tend to lean on towards relational aggression. Um, for male social behavior, males seem to be more aggressive in social interactions. The stereotype of the strong and silent male may inhibit them from expressing feelings, and males tend to have a more physical aggression versus having a relational aggression as females do. So let's look at sexual orientations and their possible origins. So sexual orientation is defined as the directionality of one's erotic and romantic interest towards members of the same sex, the other sex, both, neither, or something else. Homosexuality is defined as the sexual orientation of which a person experiences erotic attraction to preference for developing romantic relationships with members of the same sex. And this term does apply with both male and female. And homosexual men is often referred to as gay men, and homosexual women are often referred to as lesbians. Gay men and lesbians are referred to collectively as gays or gay people. We commonly hear the term gay marriage used as synonymous with same sex marriage, and in this case refers to as lesbians as well as gay men. Heterosexual is defined as the sexual orientation in which the person experiences erotic attraction to and preference for developing romantic relationships with members of the other sex. All right, sexual orientations continued. So um, you have gay men here, men, which is men who are sexually attracted to and desire to form romantic relationships with other men. You have lesbians, females who are sexually attracted to, interest, and form relationships with the other females. You have bisexual, which is a person that experiences attraction to developing relationships for either a male or a female partner. And you have asexual, which is an individual who experiences little or to no sexual attraction to other people. So uh, asexual, so when you think of asexual, is not synonymous with a sexual abstinence or celibacy. There are people that makes feel the sexual attraction towards anyone who experience limited sexual attraction. So, all right. So this here, this is a diagram here that came out of the textbook. And this is figure 10.3, which is known as the Kinsey continuum, Kinsey scale, also known as the heterosexual homosexual rating scale. And so Kinsey and his colleagues developed a conceived point of 7 point heterosexual homosexual continuum that classifies people according to their homosexual behaviors and attraction to their own gender. So this scale is actually used to describe a person's sexual orientation, and this scale ranges from 0 to 6. So as you can see on the scale, at the bottom is 0 is going to be categorized as exclusively heterosexual with no homosexual. You have 1, which is predominantly heterosexual, only incidentally homosexual. You have number 2, which is predominantly heterosexual, but more than incidentally homosexual. You have number 3, equally homosexual and heterosexual. Number 4, predominantly homosexual, but more than incidentally heterosexual, excuse me. Number 5, you have predominantly homosexual, but incidentally heterosexual. And lastly, number 6, you have exclusively homosexual with no heterosexual. So I thought this chart with this it was pretty interesting to include. So I just wanted to touch base on that. So psychological disorders and symptoms. So let's get into that. So psychological disorder is a condition characterized by distressing, impairing, and or atypical thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Psychopathology is the study of psychological disorders, including their symptoms, etiology, their causes, and treatment. So the psychological disorders I'm going to be discussing one by one is I'm going to be talking about adjustment disorders, anxiety disorder, and dissociative disorder, excuse me. Okay. Adjustment disorders is a maladaptive reaction to an identified stressor that occurs shortly after exposure to the stressor and is characterized by impaired social, academic, or vocational functioning or other signs of distress that exceed those that are considered normal under the circumstances. So some of the symptoms of adjustment disorder includes feeling sad, hopelessness, and not doing any activities you used to enjoy, worrying or feeling anxious, nervousness, trouble sleeping, lack of appetite, difficulty concentrating, and suicidal thoughts or behavior. All right, so now you have anxiety disorders, which is an emotional state that is accompanied by subjective behavior and or physical features. Subjective features include worrying, fear of the worst happening, fear of losing control, nervousness, and inability to relax. Some of this anxiety disorder symptoms include you have social phobias, and some of those phobias include claustrophobia, which is a persistent, irrational fear of tight and closed spaces. You have agoraphobia, which is a fear of open or crowded spaces. And you also have one called acrophobia, which is a persistent, irrational fear of high places. You have social anxiety disorder, panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, hoarding disorder, stress disorder, and illness anxiety disorder. All righty, and so now dissociative disorders. This is a separation or disassociation of mental processes such as thoughts, emotions, identity, memory, or consciousness. This is a process that makes us feel whole. Uh, and some of the symptoms of dissociative disorders is feeling disconnected from yourself and the world around you, forgetting about certain time periods, certain events, personal information, just feeling uncertain about who you are, having multiple distinct personalities, and feeling no sense of no pain whatsoever. Some of the types of dissociative disorders that they have is a dissociative amnesia. And so with dissociative amnesia, um, you have a dissociative fugue, which is a subtype of dissociative amnesia, which one experiences amnesia and then flees to a new location, possibly taking on a new life. You have DID, which is known as dissociative identity disorder, and this one is characterized by the emergence of two or more um, distinct personalities in the same person. This is also referred to as multiple personality or split personality disorder. And you have depersonalization slash derealization disorder, which is persistent or recurring feelings of depersonalization, that feeling of detachment from oneself or the body, and which involves feelings of one's surroundings of the environment seems unreal to someone. All right, so now let's take a look at the elements of client-centered therapy. So client-centered therapy. So client-centered therapy was originated by a psychologist named Carl Rogers. And what's client-centered therapy, this type of therapy is non-directive therapy, which encourages the clients to take the lead and creates a warm therapeutic atmosphere that frees clients to engage in self-exploration and self-expression. So with client-centered therapy, this traditional psychoanalysts, they focus on this therapy using they go back in early childhood experiences. This therapy also focuses on what the client's experiencing in the here and now, so like in the present moment. And so both traditional psychoanalyst and the client, they and client, excuse me, client-centered therapy encourages clients to take the lead when conducting client-centered therapy. Once the client takes the lead, and client and counselor builds that effective rapport and relationship with one another, in order for that to work, you have to have the three most important qualities when it comes to client-centered therapy. And so the first one consists of unconditional positive regard, which is having unconditional respect for the client as human beings with unique values and worth, regardless of their particular behavior. You have empathetic understanding, the accurate recognition of the client's experiences and feelings. Therapists attempt to view the world in the client's frame of reference by setting aside their own values and listening closely. Basically, the therapist is putting themselves in the client's shoes, And genuine, and you have genuineness, which is modeling genuine or authentic feelings during the therapy session to encourage clients to do the same. All right, other types of therapies, you have psychotherapy, which is a systematic interaction between the therapist and the client. It applies psychological principles to affect the client's thoughts, feelings, behaviors in order to help client overcome psychological disorders. You have behavior therapy, which is a form of psychotherapy that applies principles of learning to directly modify clients' problem behaviors. You have aversive conditioning, which is a behavior therapy technique in which unwanted behavior is paired with an aversive or painful stimuli that the individual learns to associate with the behavior with punishment rather than rewards. And you have operant conditioning, which is a behavior method that fosters adaptive behavior through applying principles of reinforcements. And some of those examples include token economies, social skills training, and biofeedback training. More types of therapies. You have cognitive therapy. And so cognitive therapy was originated by Aaron Beck. And so with cognitive therapy, this helps clients identify their distorted way of thinking. You replace the irrational thoughts with more positive, healthier thoughts. We tend to think of distorted or faulty thoughts as a tinted glass that darkens a person's perception of experiences. So that's like a way to look at cognitive therapy there. You have rational emotive behavior therapy, also known as REBT, which was originated by Albert Ellis. And this type of psychotherapy helps clients identify irrational thoughts such as perfectionism, and trying to challenge clients to exchange the beliefs for a rational alternative. So basically turning negative thoughts into positive ones. You have Gestalt therapy, and Gestalt therapy is a highly directive method to aim people integrate conflicting parts of their personality. Um, and this therapy makes the client aware of the conflict, accept its reality, and make choices despite fear. So with Gestalt therapy, the client is increasing a person's awareness, freedom, and self-direction, like trying to make the person feel whole again. And you have eclectic therapy, and this type of therapy is with the therapists, they identify with more an eclectic approach and draw on like these other principles here, such as therapists can use um, in combination of cognitive therapy with REBT, um, like that. All right, so the advantages of group therapies. The group therapy has some advantages. It is economical, which is um, it's more cost less than actually individual groups. Compared with one-on-one therapy, group therapy provides more information and life experiences for clients to draw on. Appropriate behavior receives group support. When we run into troubles, it's easy to imagine that we are different from other people or inferior to them. Group members who show improvement provide that hope for other members. So, um, being around other members that they have some type of bond, something in common with, helps provide that installation of hope. Many individuals seek therapy because of problems in relating to other people. So types of group therapy. So you have couples therapy, which is a form of therapy that focuses on helping couples in distressing resolve their conflicts and enhance their communication skills. You have family therapy, in which one or more families Oh, excuse, I'm sorry. For a couples therapy. So the couple treats the twosome as the basic unit um, in the session. The problems often include conflicts such as struggles to share power and achieve greater intimacy. Uh, Family therapy is undertaken from the system approach, which modifies family interactions to enhance the growth and autonomy of individuals in the family and well-being of the family. So the family works as a unit when it comes to family therapy. And you have self-help and support groups. Some self-help and support groups enable people who have been treated for psychological disorders to reach out to have similar experiences. This is also quite common, like in clients who suffer from a substance abuse issue. You have a best known a self-help group known as Alcoholics Anonymous, that could best serve for people who is trying to overcome addiction for substance abuse. Key issues in psychotherapy. So one of the key issues in psychotherapy that people says is, does psychotherapy work? So there are several kinds of psychotherapy. Some are non-directive, excuse me, others are directive. Some work with individuals and some work with groups. But simply put, the answer is yes. Therapy is effective. The most widely used statistical technique for determining the magnitude for specific therapies and control groups is called meta-analysis. On With meta-analysis, many psychotherapists effectiveness have been performed with evidence strongly supporting the effectiveness of psychotherapy. Um, All right, so more key issues in psychotherapy. You have this is the diagram that came from the textbook here. This is table 14.3. This is the examples of the empirically supported data that psychotherapists use when doing treatment and the conditions for which treatment is effective. So you have cognitive therapy here, which is found effective for depression and headaches. You have behavioral modification or behavior therapy, which is effective for depression, persons with developmental disabilities, headaches. You neureses, hopefully I said that correctly, bedwetting, agoraphobia, and other specific phobias, obsessive compulsive disorder. And you have CBT, which is effective for panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, bulimia, smoking cessation. You have exposure treatment, which is effective for agoraphobia or other specific phobia. Exposure and response prevention, effective for OCD. You have psychodynamic therapy and interpersonal therapy, which is effective for depression. And you have parent training programs, which is effective for children that suffers from oppositional behavior, such as a oppositional defiant disorder. More key issues in psychotherapy. You have so when it comes to psychotherapy, a psychotherapist must learn how to be culturally sensitive when it comes to meeting their clients of different ethnic groups. So psychotherapist needs to understand and respect the customs and values of cultural background of their clients and recognize the cultural differences and understanding how it works. So these are some of the ethnic groups that came from the textbook. So you have Latin Americans. When psychotherapists are working with Latin Americans, they want to be able to recognize the importance of social and family ties in Hispanic groups because um, uh, Latin Americans, they tend to rely on big on family when it comes to using psychotherapy and just in their lives in general. African Americans are often reluctant to seek psychological help because of cultural assumptions that people should manage their own problems and because of cultural mistrust of the mental health system. Many African Americans more than likely opposed to therapy. Many times, African Americans do tend to rely on their spirituality or their religion to as their form of therapy. You have Asian Americans, which is um, traditional Asian cultures places a strong value on avoiding public display of emotions and talking openly about oneself or one's feelings. There's also considerable stigma attached to admitting to emotional problems. So basically, Asian Americans are not showing like any kind of emotions. Um, and you have Native Americans, which is some therapists use ceremonies that reflect on cultural and religious traditions of Native Americans, as well as traditional tribal rituals and customs. All right, and lastly is feminist therapy. So, feminist therapy is an integrative approach to psychotherapy that focuses on the challenges that women face as a result of bias, stereotyping, oppression, discrimination, and other factors, and how stresses can negatively affect their mental health. Feminist therapy is developed as a response to the male dominance of health professions and institutions. It suggested that the mental health establishment often work to maintaining inequality between men and women, trying to help women adjust to traditional gender roles when they wish to challenge these roles in their lives. So basically, um, feminists believe that men and women should have the freedom to develop their human interests and talents, even if those interests and talents conflict with the status quo. So, for example, if a woman wants to be a mechanic, she should have the opportunity to do so because it should just revolve around a man doing it. I feel like women can do things, a lot of things that men can do as well. So here are my references here, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed it, and you all have a great one.